They raided your neighbor last week. Same setup you have. Solar panels, generators, freeze-dried meals. They didn't arrest him. They cataloged everything. Photos, serial numbers, asked where he bought it, explained that in an emergency, resources might need redistribution for the common good. He's on a list now. You're probably on it too. Every Amazon order for tactical gear, every Cabela's trip, every off-grid YouTube video. The algorithm doesn't just recommend, it profiles. And when scarcity turns political, profiles become targets. But here's what they actually fear. Not your $3,000 solar array. Not your branded gear. They fear the $80 chemistry set purifying infinite water, the $45 preservation system lasting decades, the $35 radio making you ungovernable. 7 items under $100 that don't prepare you to survive. They prepare you to disappear. Water filtration systems are legal. Pool shock isn't illegal. So why does buying 50 pounds of it trigger a DEA database flag? Here's what's happening. Every time you buy a Berkey filter, a Life Straw, a Sawyer Mini, you're creating a data point. Credit card transaction. Shipping address. Your name. That purchase gets categorized. Water filtration equals preparedness, mindset equals potential prepper. The algorithm tags you. Marketing databases aggregate it. And when those databases get subpoenaed, when resources get scarce enough that the government starts caring who's got what, your purchase history becomes a roadmap to your door. But here's what they don't advertise in the camping section at REI. You don't need a $300 filter system with proprietary replacement cartridges. You need basic chemistry. And the chemistry is so simple, so permanent, that it's been deliberately kept out of the conversation. Calcium hypochlorite. Pool shock. The white powder you use to keep swimming pools from turning into bacterial swamps. It's a chlorine donor. When you dissolve it in water, it releases hypochlorous acid and hypochlorite ions. Those ClO- ions are oxidizers. They rip electrons off the cell walls of bacteria, viruses, and protozoa. The microorganisms can't function. They die. The water is safe. The dosage is 2 grams per 1,000 gallons. That's it. A teaspoon treats enough water for a family of 4 for a week. A 50-pound bucket of calcium hypochlorite, the kind you buy at any pool supply store for $80, contains about 22,000 grams. Do the math. That's 11 million gallons of purified drinking water. A family of 4 uses about 400 gallons per day for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. Your $80 bucket lasts 75 years. Compare that to a Berkey. $300 for the system. Replacement filters every 3,000 gallons. That's $100 every few months if you're using it daily. Over 10 years, you're spending $5,000 to $6,000. Over 75 years, you're looking at $40,000. And when the supply chain collapses, when Berkey stops shipping replacement cartridges, your $300 filter becomes a decorative paperweight. The calcium hypochlorite just works forever. So why the DEA flag? Because bulk purchases of oxidizers indicate knowledge, not just consumption. Manufacturing knowledge. The DEA worries you're making explosives. Homeland Security worries you're synthesizing precursors for drug production. They're not wrong to track oxidizers. They're just tracking the wrong threat. The real threat, from their perspective, is that you know how to purify water without asking permission, without creating a paper trail, without depending on a corporation that needs quarterly earnings. You've got 75 years of clean water for $80. You're no longer a customer. You've solved the problem. Permanently. Water is freedom. But water without food is a 3-week death sentence. Your freeze-dried bucket meals have expiration dates printed right on the side. 5 years. Maybe 10 if you're lucky. Your canned goods are already oxidizing from the inside. The metal is reacting with the food. In 3 years, the vitamin content drops by 50%. In 5, you're eating expensive cardboard. You've spent $3,000 on Mountain House buckets thinking you're building food security. You're not. You're building a countdown clock. Here's what the USDA doesn't advertise. Long-term food storage isn't complicated. It's just chemistry. and the chemistry has been deliberately buried under safety guidelines written by lobbyists for the food industry. Oxidation is what kills food. Oxygen molecules react with fats and proteins. The fats go rancid, the proteins break down. Bacteria and fungi need oxygen to grow and multiply. Remove the oxygen, you remove the problem. That's it. That's the entire science. Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. That's the solution. A Mylar bag is just polyester film laminated with aluminum. It blocks light, moisture, and oxygen. You put your rice, beans, wheat, or oats inside. You toss in an oxygen absorber. It's a small packet of iron powder. The iron oxidizes, pulling all the oxygen out of the sealed environment. Within hours, you've created an anaerobic storage system. No oxygen means no oxidation, no rancidity, no bacterial growth. Shelf life in proper Mylar storage. White rice, 25 to 30 years. Dried beans, 25 years. Wheat berries, 30 years. Oats, 30 years. We're not talking about marketing claims. We're talking about tested, documented chemistry. The food doesn't degrade because there's nothing to degrade it. The cost: 100 Mylar bags, 5 to 7 mil thickness, $30. 100 oxygen absorbers, $15. Total investment, $45. Those 100 bags store 600 pounds of staple foods. A 50-pound bag of rice costs $20. A 50-pound bag of pinto beans, $35. You're looking at $200 in bulk food that lasts 3 decades. Compare that to $3,000 in Mountain House buckets that expire in 5 years. Over 30 years, you're spending $18,000 on branded survival food, or $200 once on the actual solution. So why doesn't the USDA promote this? Because the USDA food storage guidelines are written in consultation with the processed food industry. They recommend against long-term home storage. They warn about botulism risks, improper sealing, contamination hazards. They want you buying food from grocery stores every week. Dependence creates revenue. But here's the kicker. While you're stockpiling rice and beans, you're ignoring the real scarcity problem. Medicine. When the supply chain breaks, antibiotics disappear in 72 hours. Pharmacies get cleaned out. Hospitals ration what's left for critical cases. You've got infected wounds, respiratory infections, UTIs. No doctor. No prescription, just you and the infection. Fish antibiotics, Thomas Labs fish mocks. Aquarium antibiotics sold for treating bacterial infections in fish tanks. Amoxicillin 500 milligrams. Same chemical compound, same dosage, same manufacturer in many cases, just different packaging. Fish Mox Forte. Ciprofloxacin. Doxycycline. Every major antibiotic used in human medicine is available as a fish tank treatment. The FDA doesn't regulate veterinary antibiotics for aquarium use because fish aren't food animals. It's a regulatory loophole. Cost comparison. A bottle of 100 amoxicillin capsules from Thomas Labs, $35. The same prescription from CVS with insurance, $80 to $120. Without insurance, $200. The pharmaceutical industry's profit model depends on prescription gatekeeping. You can't get antibiotics without a doctor. The doctor won't prescribe unless you're already sick. You can't stockpile. You're dependent. Fish antibiotics break that dependency. You've got water, you've got food and medicine. But if the grid goes down for more than 72 hours, your refrigerated food spoils anyway. The refrigerator stops. The power's been out for 6 hours. Your meat is warming. You've got maybe 18 hours before it's unsafe. After that, it's rot. Your great-grandmother preserved meat for months without electricity. You can't. That knowledge was deliberately erased. Salt curing. It's osmosis. You pack meat in salt at a 3.5% concentration by weight. The salt creates a hypertonic environment outside the cells. Water moves from high concentration inside the bacterial cells to low concentration in the salt. The bacteria dehydrate. They die. The meat is preserved. You can store salt-cured meat for months at room temperature. Years if you're careful about moisture control. Fermentation works through controlled bacterial growth. You're creating an environment where good bacteria outcompete the bad. Lactobacillus bacteria consume sugars in vegetables and produce lactic acid as waste. The pH drops below 4.5. At that acidity, pathogenic bacteria can't survive. Your sauerkraut, your kimchi, your pickles, they're not just food, they're chemical warfare against spoilage. Cost for both methods: a 50-pound bag of salt, $15. That's enough to preserve 500 pounds of meat. Mason jars for fermentation, you probably already own them. If not, $20 for a dozen. Knowledge cost? Zero. Your ancestors did this without YouTube tutorials. The information is simple. But the refrigeration industry spent a century convincing you that food preservation requires electricity and appliances. It doesn't. Now let's talk about biological dependency. Heirloom seeds. Open-pollinated varieties. You plant them, they grow. They produce seeds. You save those seeds. You plant them next season. The cycle continues indefinitely. A packet of heirloom tomato seeds costs $3. Those seeds produce plants that produce more seeds. You've bought genetic independence for $3. Hybrid seeds from Monsanto, Bayer, Syngenta. They're bred for specific traits: high yield, disease resistance, uniform appearance. But the seeds they produce are either sterile or genetically unstable. The second-generation plants don't breed true. You have to buy new seeds every year. That's not an accident. That's the business model: a basic heirloom seed vault. Tomatoes, peppers, beans, squash, lettuce, herbs, 20 varieties, $60 total. Those seeds, if stored properly in a cool, dry place, remain viable for 3 to 10 years depending on variety. And every year you plant them, you're generating more seeds. You're no longer a customer. Food won't matter if you freeze to death in week 1. It's been 6 hours without heat. Your core temperature is dropping. You're shivering uncontrollably. That's your body's last attempt to generate warmth through muscle contractions. Once the shivering stops, you're in late-stage hypothermia. You've got maybe an hour before cardiac arrest. The outdoor industry sold you bulk: down sleeping bags, synthetic insulation, layering systems. They told you warmth equals thickness. It doesn't. Warmth equals heat retention, and heat retention is physics, not marketing. Your body radiates heat as infrared radiation. That's thermodynamics. The Stefan Boltzmann law. Radiated power is proportional to the fourth power of temperature. A small drop in surface temperature means massive heat loss. Insulation works by trapping air to slow conduction and convection, but it does nothing about radiation. Your heat is still escaping as infrared waves. Emergency mylar blankets solve this with a principle the outdoor industry doesn't advertise: reflection. The blanket is just polyester film coated with a thin layer of aluminum. That aluminum reflects 90% of infrared radiation back toward your body. You're not trapping air. You're bouncing your own heat back at yourself. The blanket weighs 2 ounces. It folds into a 3-inch square. And it costs $1.50 per unit. Compare that to a $400 down sleeping bag. The bag weighs 3 pounds. It's rated to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It'll last maybe 5 years before the down starts clumping and losing loft. You can buy a 10-pack of Mylar blankets for $15. Those blankets don't degrade. They don't compress. They don't absorb moisture. They just reflect heat. Forever. Now let's talk about fire. Chemical lighters run out of fuel. The piezoelectric igniters crack in cold weather. At high altitude, low oxygen makes them unreliable. Matches get wet. You've got maybe 200 strikes in a disposable lighter, then you're done. A ferro rod is a cerium iron alloy. You scrape it with a sharp edge. It produces sparks at 3,000 degrees Celsius. Hot enough to ignite tinder in any weather, any altitude, wet or dry. A standard ferro rod gives you 12,000 strikes minimum. Some are rated for 20,000. You can submerge it in water, freeze it solid, leave it in the sun for a decade. Scrape it, it sparks. No fuel, no moving parts, no failure points. Cost: $12 for a quality ferro rod. It outlasts 60 disposable lighters. Heat keeps you alive, but mobility keeps you free. Your power tools are paperweights. The batteries are dead. The charging station requires electricity you don't have. Your cordless drill, your circular saw, your reciprocating saw. All of them are waiting for infrastructure that isn't coming back. You can't build a shelter. You can't repair a door. You can't cut firewood. You're surrounded by tools you can't use. Cathedrals were built with hand tools. Gothic arches, flying buttresses, structures that have stood for 800 years. Your ancestors shaped wood and stone with manual labor and basic physics. You can't hang a door. That's not an accident. That's systematic de-skilling. Vocational education was defunded starting in the 1980s. Shop class disappeared from high schools. Manual trade knowledge stopped being transmitted. An entire generation grew up never learning how to work with their hands. The result is a population that's tool-dependent, but tool-incompetent. You own a drill. You don't know how drilling works. Manual tools operate on mechanical advantage. Leverage? You apply force over a distance, the tool multiplies that force through geometry. A hand brace and bit. You turn the crank. The spiral bit rotates and cuts into wood. No battery. No motor. Just your body as the engine and physics as the multiplier. It works on any material. Hardwood, softwood, metal if you've got the right bit. And it never runs out of power because you are the power. A Japanese pull saw. $25. The teeth are angled to cut on the pull stroke instead of the push. That means you're using your body weight and arm strength efficiently. The blade is thin, the kerf is narrow, you're removing less material per cut. It's faster and more precise than a circular saw for anything under 6 inches thick. No electricity. No maintenance beyond occasional sharpening. A complete manual tool starter kit. Hand drill with bits, pull saw, set of files, wood chisels, hand plane, measuring tools. You're looking at $60 total if you buy used or entry-level quality. Those tools last generations. No batteries to replace, no proprietary ecosystems, no planned obsolescence. And that's why they're not advertised. DeWalt, Milwaukee, Makita. Their entire business model is built on battery replacement cycles. You buy the drill for $100. The battery dies in 3 years. Replacement battery, $80. Or you upgrade to the new tool that uses a different battery platform entirely. Your old batteries become e-waste. You're locked into the ecosystem. You're paying subscription fees disguised as hardware. Manual tools don't have ecosystems. You're not a customer. You're a craftsman. And a craftsman who understands the physics of leverage and cutting edges doesn't need permission from a battery manufacturer to work. Tools give you capability, but capability without information is blind labor. The internet is down. Your phone is a brick. Your cloud storage is gone. Every Wikipedia article you bookmarked, every PDF you saved to Google Drive, every medical reference you thought you had access to. It's all on servers you can't reach. Human knowledge fits in your pocket. They want it in their servers. A 128 gigabyte USB flash drive costs $15. That's enough storage for the entire English Wikipedia compressed to 50 gigabytes. Medical textbooks, survival manuals, engineering references, agricultural guides, pharmaceutical databases. You can fit the sum of human practical knowledge on a device the size of your thumb. Offline. Uncensorable. Immune to deplatforming, internet collapse, and corporate control. Tech companies push cloud storage because the business model is perfect. Monthly subscription fees, data mining. You never own the information. You rent access. And when access gets revoked, either through censorship or infrastructure failure, you're back to ignorance. A flash drive is permanent ownership. $15. One time. Forever. But there's a problem. Electromagnetic pulse, EMP, a high-altitude nuclear detonation or a severe solar flare generates a massive burst of electromagnetic radiation. It induces current in any conductor. Your electronics fry. Circuit boards burn out. Solid-state storage can survive if it's not powered on, but the risk is real. Faraday bags. $25 for a 5-pack. They're just heavy-duty pouches lined with copper mesh. The mesh creates a conductive enclosure. When an electromagnetic wave hits it, the energy is redistributed across the surface of the conductor. The field inside remains zero. Your flash drive is shielded. Basic physics. Discovered by Michael Faraday in 1836. You've got $40 total, a knowledge vault and EMP protection. You're no longer dependent on infrastructure. You're no longer reliant on corporate platforms. You've got information sovereignty. But there's one item that combines all of this: water, food, medicine, heat, tools, information, and it's the one they fear most. Cell towers are dark. Landlines are cut. You're isolated. Your family is 20 miles away and you can't reach them. Your group is scattered across town and there's no way to coordinate. You've got water, food, medicine, heat, tools, and information. But you're alone. They want you on networks they control. Cell phones route through centralized towers owned by corporations that answer to governments. One executive order, one infrastructure failure, one policy change, and you're silenced. Ham radio answers to physics, and physics doesn't negotiate with policy. The Baofeng UV5R, $35. It's a handheld dual-band transceiver. VHF and UHF frequencies. 5 watts of transmit power. In open terrain, you're looking at 5 to 10 miles of direct communication range. In dense urban environments with buildings, maybe 2 to 3 miles. But here's where it gets interesting. Repeaters. A repeater is just a radio on a hilltop or tall building that receives your weak signal and rebroadcasts it at higher power. There are thousands of amateur radio repeaters across the United States. Most of them run on solar power with battery backup. They're not owned by corporations. They're maintained by hobbyists and radio clubs. You transmit to the repeater. It extends your range to 50 miles or more. You've just turned a $35 handheld into a regional communication network, and nobody controls it. Here's where governments get nervous. Ham radio requires a license from the FCC. You're supposed to pass an exam, get a call sign, follow regulations. That creates a database. Every licensed ham operator is registered. Name, address, call sign. The government knows who has the capability to communicate when infrastructure fails. But there's a clause nobody advertises. FCC Part 97.403, Emergency Communications. In situations involving immediate safety of life or property, you can use any frequency, any power level, any mode of transmission. The rules don't apply. And the FCC can't enforce licensing requirements during a collapse because enforcement requires functioning infrastructure. So the license is a peacetime filter. It keeps the spectrum organized when everything's normal. But when normal ends, the radios work regardless of whether you took the test. The physics doesn't care about your paperwork. Contrast this with cell phones. Centralized. Every call is routed through towers connected to a network owned by AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. The corporation can throttle you, track you, or cut you off entirely. The government can issue a kill switch order and your phone becomes a paperweight. You're renting access to communication. You don't own it. Ham radio is peer-to-peer. You transmit, I receive. No middleman, no subscription, no kill switch. And with the right add-ons, digital modes, and encryption software, you can send text messages, GPS coordinates, and weather data. You can coordinate supply sharing. Your neighbor with the hand tools needs seeds. You've got seeds but need water purification knowledge. Someone 3 miles away has medical training. The radio network becomes the logistics backbone of survival. This is why it's the most dangerous item on this list. It ties everything together. Water purification, food storage, manual skills, offline information. All of it becomes shareable, teachable, tradable through a communication system that can't be shut down. 7 items. 7 ways to exit the system. Now let me show you the pattern. Look at what these 7 items have in common. All under $100, all legally available, all create permanent solutions instead of recurring dependencies. Pattern 1. They destroy business models. Calcium hypochlorite lasts 75 years. Mylar bags store food for 30. Manual tools work forever. There's no subscription, no refill, no planned obsolescence. You buy once, you're done. You're no longer a customer. And in an economy built on repeat purchases, a permanent solution is a threat. Pattern 2. They require knowledge. Pool shock needs chemistry understanding. Mylar bags need proper sealing technique. Ferro rods need tinder preparation. Ham radios need frequency knowledge. These aren't plug-and-play consumer products. They demand competence, and competence makes you dangerous. Pattern 3. They work without infrastructure. No grid, no internet, no supply chain, no corporate permission. Water purification happens through chemistry. Food preservation happens through anaerobic storage. Heat retention happens through physics. Communication happens through radio waves. You've removed the middleman. You've removed the control point. So why doesn't the government just ban them? Because an outright ban validates everything. It proves the conspiracy. It creates martyrs and black markets. Instead, they use a quieter strategy. Silence. No advertising. No education. No distribution through mainstream channels. The knowledge exists, but it's buried under noise. Under 1,000 inferior products with bigger marketing budgets. Your complete starter kit. Pool shock, $20. Mylar bags and absorbers, $45. Fish antibiotics, $35. Salt and jars, $35. Mylar blankets and ferro rod, $27. Manual tools, $60. Flash drive and Faraday bag, $40. Ham radio, $35. Total cost, $297. Everything you need to achieve chemical, thermal, biological, and informational independence for under $300. They can't ban chemistry. They can't ban thermodynamics. They can't ban radio waves propagating according to the inverse square law.